Very good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Beetv Global News at 12. I am Ruth Obodu and now the news in detail. Rep. Jasmine Crockett of Texas, one of the most outspoken Democrats in Congress and a frequent target of Republican attacks, formally launched a campaign for the U.S. Senate on Monday, entering the race on the final day of candidate qualifying. A last-minute entry immediately reshaped the political landscape of a high-stake contest in a Republican-dominated state. The report.
Crockett, an Antonian former civil rights defender before election to Congress, has built a national profile for aggressive style and willingness to confront GOP lawmakers. Our willingness to enter the race after the withdrawal of former Rep. Colin Arreld signaled the Democratic leadership now sees an opening, however, narrow in a state where their party has not won statewide office in decades. Our launch included a video compilation of Trump's past insults aimed at her, which she used to frame herself as uniquely prepared to challenge both him and the Republican establishment. Crockett, who represents a majority-minority district, emphasized her doubts about her viability stemmed from perceptions tied to her race, gender, and the state's political thoughts. She urged supporters to ignore those who claim Texas is unwinnable for Democrats. Crockett outlined a platform centered on rising costs, healthcare access, and the failure she attributed to Texas Republicans on issues like education and public safety. She has said that internal data shows she is capable of performing strongly in both the Democratic primary and the general election. Our strategy is expected to focus on energizing Black, Latino, young, and urban voters' demographics that have helped Democrats make gains in other southern states. Though Texas remains heavily Republican, Crockett and her supporters argue that shifting demographics and dissatisfaction with GOP leadership provide an opportunity for an upset. Crockett's main competitor in the Democratic primary is expected to be State Representative James Talarico, a progressive figure popular among young voters. The contest may become a defining battle over how the party positions itself in a state that has resisted Democratic attempts at statewide resurgence for more than 2 decades. The Democratic primary is scheduled for March 3rd. Crockett's entry raises the visibility of the race and could draw national attention and resources, especially as Democrats seek paths to regain control of the U.S. Senate. The Texas Senate race is now considered more competitive than earlier in the cycle. While still an uphill climb, Crockett's candidacy had unpredictability and may force Republicans into a more defensive posture if a campaign gains traction. Democrat strategy says even a close race would encourage greater long-term investment in Texas, a state where rapidly growing urban and suburban population. For Crockett, the campaign will test whether a confrontation style and a willingness to take on Trump directly can translate into statewide appeal in one of the nation's most closely watched political battlegrounds. Soher Osemeki reporting for Beetv News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday met with European leaders in London to emphasize the importance of unity between Ukraine, Europe, and the United States amid ongoing efforts to end Russia's war in Ukraine. The report.
The high-level meeting held at 10 Downing Street brought together Zelensky, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, French President Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Kyiv described the gathering as taking place at a decisive time in the US-led diplomatic push for peace. During the talks, Zelensky stressed that Ukraine cannot achieve its objectives alone. There are things we can't manage without the Americans, things we can't manage without Europe, and that's why we need to make some important decisions, he said. He thanked the leaders for organizing the meeting, noting their personal contributions towards achieving a dignified and guaranteed peace. The discussion focused on coordination with the United States regarding a proposed peace plan, ensuring European support in security, reconstruction, and diplomatic efforts. European leaders reaffirmed their commitment to assisting Ukraine, including financial aid and political backing, with particular emphasis on the potential use of frozen Russian assets to support post-war reconstruction. Security and defense were key topics, with Zelensky and the European leaders highlighting the importance of strengthening Ukraine's air defenses and securing long-term funding amid ongoing Russian aggression. Despite the cooperative tone, some differences emerged. Chancellor Merge expressed caution regarding aspects of the U.S. peace proposal, emphasizing that coming days could be decisive in shaping a workable agreement. No final decisions were made on territorial issues, particularly concerning contested eastern regions of Ukraine, a major sticking point in the negotiations. Zelensky indicated that a 20-point plan discussed during the talks would be finalized soon and submitted to the U.S. for further action. European leaders expressed optimism about maintaining a coordinated front to support Ukraine diplomatically, financially, and militarily. The London meeting underscores Kyiv's ongoing efforts to secure robust international backing as the conflict with Russia continues, highlighting the pivotal role of transatlantic unity in shaping the world's outcome and the region's future. Evelyn Isibla reporting for Beetv News.
The U.S. Supreme Court appears poised to expand presidential authority over independent federal agencies, signaling potential support for President Donald Trump's ability to fire agency board members at will. The court's conservative majority suggested it may overturn a 19-year-old precedent that has long restricted this type of presidential power. The report.
The case centers on Trump's firing of Federal Trade Commission FTC Commissioner Rebecca Slaughter, a move lower courts had blocked under existing law. The legal protection in question date back to the 1935 decision Humphreys Executor v. United States, which allowed Congress to establish quasi-legislative or quasi-judicial agencies whose members could only be removed for causes such as neglect or malfeasance rather than at the president's discretion. During oral arguments, the court's conservative justices questioned the continued relevance of Humphreys' executor. Justice Brett Kavanaugh highlighted that independent agencies wield significant power over industries and individual liberties while remaining largely unaccountable to the public. Solicitor General John D. Sousa described the precedent as a decaying husk, arguing that the president should retain control over agency leadership. Conversely, liberal justices expressed deep concern about the potential implications. Justice Sonia Sotomayor warned that overturning the protections would destroy the structure of government, while Justice Elena Kagan cautioned that the ruling could leave the president with control over everything, undermining independent, expert-driven decision-making. If the Supreme Court sides with the administration, agencies long considered independent, including the FTC, National Labor Relations Board, and Merit Systems Protection Board, could come under direct presidential control. Such a ruling may politicize regulatory decisions, as board members could be replaced based on loyalty or ideology rather than expertise. Experts warn this could significantly alter the balance of power between the branches of government and reshape the administrative state. The Supreme Court has heard arguments, and a decision is expected by summer 2026. Legal analysts say the ruling could have far-reaching consequences for federal regulation and governance, fundamentally altering the independence of U.S. administrative system. Temitakwe Oluwafemi reporting for Beetv News.
One year after a fragile ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel, residents of this northern border town are returning, but many find homecoming more painful than homeful. For much of the pre-war population, there is little left to return to. The reports.
When hostilities broke out in October 2023 following a major attack by Hamas in the south, Hezbollah launched sustained rocket fire into northern Israel. The result, tens of thousands of civilians were displaced. Among them were the roughly 1,700 residents of Metula. After months of fighting and a destructive ground offensive, a ceasefire agreement was reached on November 27, 2024. Israeli authorities began encouraging displaced residents to return home. Officials' figure suggests roughly 55,000 people have returned to northern border areas since the ceasefire. In Metula itself, just over half the pre-war population has come back, but the town feels far from alive. Streets remain largely empty. The damage is extensive. Local authorities estimate about 60% of homes were hit by rocket fire. Some houses abandoned for months were later found to be infested by rats, and many are effectively ruined. The local economy, once anchored in tourism and agriculture, has collapsed. Hotels and guest houses lie damaged or deserted. Orchards and farms were destroyed or abandoned. Among the returnees is Ilan Rosenfield, whose modest cafe and farm, once a scenic hilltop spot overlooking the border fence, was reduced to rubble. Everything I had, everything I built is gone, he said. Now living in a makeshift shelter beside the twisted metal and shattered clay plates that once belonged to his business. Others returned to find empty streets, closed businesses, and decimated livelihoods. For many, the lack of functioning services, no open shops, limited infrastructure, no steady jobs make returning full-time unthinkable. Business owners who did come back say the workforce is gone. Some have hired foreign workers, for example, from Thailand, to compensate for labor shortages. Though the ceasefire holds on paper, tension lingers. Residents report that renewed Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon and the ongoing refusal of Hezbollah to disarm make many feel unsafe. Local officials say reconstruction remains inadequate. Some allocated funds for rebuilding have stagnated amid political wrangling. That has left many returnees feeling neglected and vulnerable. For families with children needing schools, stable jobs, and community life, returning full-time is still a gamble. Many say they will wait until the town can guarantee a semblance of normal life. Temitope Oluwafemi reporting for Beetv News.
Ukraine's military intelligence agency says its naval drone forces are preparing for a new phase of more complex maritime strikes next year, following a year in which Kyiv's unscrew fleet significantly restricted the operations of Russia's once dominant Black Sea fleet. The report.
The commander of the Ukraine Sea Drone Unit, known as Group 13, said the country has likely reached a plateau in dramatic strikes for now, not because the drones have lost effectiveness, but because Russia has been forced to change its tactics. According to him, Russia's warship barely operates in open waters, typically sailing no more than about 25 miles from ports to launch missiles before retreating to protected zones. He described the transformation as a major strategic shift. Ukraine's expanding fleet of Magura naval drones has turned the Black Sea into a hazardous environment for Russian vessels, curbing patrols and limiting Moscow's maritime reach. The Ukraine fleet currently includes the smaller Magura V5, designed primarily for ramming attacks, and the larger Magura V7, which can carry weapons. In recent demonstrations, the V7 has been seen mounted with adapted US-made Sidewinder missiles. The commander also confirmed that his unit used a naval drone earlier this year to down a Russian attack jet, a development he called a breakthrough for sea-based unmanned warfare. As Ukraine drones become more effective, Russia shifted towards defensive behavior, relying more on coastal protection, electronic warfare, and short-range maneuvers. The shift by Moscow, the commander said, is a direct result of the drones' persistent threats. He declined to comment on recent attacks on vessels in Russia's so-called shadow oil fleets, which have caused international concerns. Looking ahead, Ukraine officials said the next generation of maritime drones will heavily incorporate artificial intelligence. Current drones already use a hybrid method in which human operators oversee navigation, while AI assists in identifying potential targets. Future versions are expected to conduct autonomous searches, distinguish between civilians and military vessels, and take on more decision-making. Ukraine has built a large archive of video, sensor data, and battlefield information from more than 2 years of naval drone missions. That data, the commander noted, is now being used to train AI models and refine both accuracy and autonomy. Ukraine is also expanding international co-production of naval drones. During President Volodymyr Zelensky's recent visit to Athens, Ukraine and Greece announced plans to collaborate on maritime UAV development, intelligence sharing, and maritime security training as early as next year. The developments highlight a dramatic change in naval warfare. With traditional warships facing growing vulnerability, Ukraine's maritime drone program has rewritten the balance of power in the Black Sea. Analysts say Russia's fleet, once central to its dominance, is now largely confined in defensive operations near ports. Despite the current pause in major high-profile strikes, Ukrainian commanders insist they are preparing for a new wave of more sophisticated attacks. As outdriven autonomy, international partnerships, and long-range capabilities come online, Ukraine expects its uncrewed fleet to carry out operations that were impossible only 2 years ago. Zainab Mohammed reporting for Beetv News.
The U.S. administration has announced that it will allow NVIDIA to export its H200 artificial intelligence (AI) chips to approved customers in China. subject to export controls, and with the U.S. government collecting a 25% cut of sales, President Donald Trump said Monday. The report.
Trump said in a social media post that he had informed Chinese President Xi Jinping of the move and that Xi responded positively. The U.S. Department of Commerce is finalizing the export approval framework under which NVIDIA can ship H200 chips to approved customers in China. The same approach may soon be extended to other U.S. chip makers, including AMD and Intel. The approval applies to NVIDIA's H200 chips, described as the company's second most powerful AI chips. Excluded from this deal are NVIDIA's latest and most advanced chips, including the Blackwell series and the forthcoming Robin chips. The 25% fee to the U.S. government represents a significant increase compared with a prior proposal of 15%. The administration has not disclosed how many H200 chips will be approved for exports, nor the detailed criteria for customer approval or configuration vetting. Exports will happen only under conditions deemed consistent with strong national security. NVIDIA welcomed the decision, saying selling H200 chips to approved commercial customers vetted by Commerce strikes a thoughtful balance that supports American jobs and manufacturing. Critics, including lawmakers concerned with national security, warned that exporting advanced AI chips to China could strengthen Chinese AI capabilities, including potential military or surveillance applications. Some analysts suggest the shift reflects a broader recalibration. Instead of fully blocking Chinese access to high-end AI hardware, the U.S. is opting for a controlled sales mechanism that balances economic interests with security oversight. For NVIDIA and other U.S. chip makers, the decision reopens access under restrictions to a major market artificially limited by prior export bans that may translate into substantial revenue opportunities. From a U.S. standpoint, the 25% share provides a financial return to taxpayers, while the export control vetting aims to mitigate national security risk. For China, if it accepts H200 chips, the move may accelerate its access to more advanced AI infrastructure, potentially narrowing the gap with U.S. data center and AI computing capabilities. Some analysts argue this could shift the race from containment to competition via commerce. But the uncertainty remains high. It is not yet clear how many chips will be approved, which customers in China will qualify, whether China's firm will opt for U.S. chips given their previous push for domestic alternatives, or how the geopolitical fallout will evolve. Temitope Oluwafemi reporting for Beetv News.
And now to the business news. The federal government has outlawed the use of fiscal cash for the payment of revenue and directed ministries, departments, and agencies to install point-of-sale terminals within 45 days. The report.
The directive formed part of 4 Treasury circulars issued by the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation and obtained by newsmen on Monday. In the document, the Accountant General, Shamsildon Ogunjimi, said all the payments to the federal government must now be made electronically and routed through channels approved by the Treasury. All payments to government must be made through electronic channels approved by the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation and integrated into the appropriate Treasury single account, the cellular read, warning that the continued acceptance of physical cash was prohibited. As the 2025 licensing round gets underway, the federal government has reduced the signature bonus from $10 million to $3 million and $7 million. The Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission disclosed this in an update on its website. According to the commission, this was part of the government's effort to reduce entry barriers. Interested in one of the oil blocks listed for the 2025 licensing round, the Nigerian government has graciously reduced the signature bonus to between $3 million and $7 million. Government restores 450 megawatts to grid after power fleet revamp. The federal government, through the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, has restored 450 megawatts of generation capacity to the national grid following the completion of scheduled maintenance works on the Jerego National Integrated Power Project plant in Kogi State. The 4-week extended minor inspection conducted by Siemens Energy was executed to improve the facility's reliability and operational efficiency. The intervention also extended the plant's equivalent operating hours, strengthening one of the country's most strategic generation assets. The development was disclosed in a statement on Monday by the head of corporate communications and external relations at NDPHC, Emmanuel Ojo. Temitope Oluwafemi reporting for Beetv News.
And now to the entertainment news. Grammy-winning Nigeria singer Temilade Openiyi, popularly known as Tems, has disclosed major red flags that would disqualify a potential romantic partner, citing a lack of friendliness and curiosity. The report.
In a recent interview with American Outfit Complex, the Love Me JJ crooner stated that the core essence of a relationship is lost if a partner is unwilling to be friendly or show genuine interest in their spouse. Tems admitted that while she is a lover girl, she is trying to be careful due to past experiences and is currently prioritizing self-love. Nigerian pastor and founder of Love World International, Pastor Chris Oyakhilome, has captivated social media with an extraordinary display during his 62nd birthday celebration. The clergyman made a striking entrance to his party, dressed in a regal robe and crown, arriving in a chariot amidst cheers from attendees. The lavish royal-themed event was held by his church and family to commemorate his milestone birthday, drawing prominent religious leaders and guests from across the country. Videos circulating online show Pastor Chris Oyakhilome being welcomed like royalty, a spectacle that quickly became a topic of widespread discussions on social media. Pastor Chris has a history of sharing extraordinary testimonies, including miraculous healings and revivals. Award-winning rapper Get has admitted killing a young man in a hit-and-run collision in northeast London. The grim artist, whose name is Justin Clark Samuel, failed to stop after his BMW hit Nepali student Yubin Tamang, 20, in Alford, northeast London on October 18th. Police said the rapper was driving over 600 mph in a 30 mph zone and hit Mr. Tamang, who was crossing the road. Clark Samuel, 41, from Woodford, East London, pleaded guilty to causing Mr. Tamang's death by dangerous driving and a second charge of dangerous driving on the same day. He also faces 2 further charges, which are driving while over the legal alcohol limit and dangerous driving. And that's it on the entertainment news. Evelyn Isabella reporting for Beetv News.
And now to sports. The Super Eagles are stepping up preparations for the 2025 African Cup of Nations in Morocco, as head coach Eric Chell prepares to cut his 54-man provisional squad down to 28 players ahead of the December 21 kickoff. Nigeria's build-up has been affected by the injury, withdrawal of defender Benjamin Frederick, and the international retirement of Captain William Troost Ekong, leaving Chell with key gaps to fill. CAF rules allowed squads of 24 to 28 players, intensifying competition among those pursuing for a place. Ola Inaz is expected to return despite being sidelined for over 100 days with a hamstring injury suffered in September. Chell's decision to include him in the provisional squad reflects confidence in his recovery. Paul Onuachu is also back in contention after rediscovering his current form in Turkey, where he leads Nigeria players in Europe's top leagues with 11 goals this season. His strong performances position him as a likely attacking option for the Eagles. And that will be all on our 12 p.m. Global News. Thank you for joining and stay tuned for our 3 p.m. news updates. I am Ruth Obodu. Goodbye for now.